Hello everyone. So we will start with question answers from the previous session related to dataset. So our first question was, what must you use to transform data in a dataset using if then else logic? So these kind of expressions where you can write if else logic is basically the custom expression editor. If you follow the video, it is clearly mentioned there that in the custom expression editor we can do the if else logic. So this is the first question. Let's move to the next question. You have a data set that extracts data from SAP Business Warehouse. The data in the SAP BW system changes. How you can update the data set? So as in the video, I have said that there is no way to schedule a data refresh in case of data set, because in case you want to have a schedule refresh, you need to go and use the model instead of the data set. Data set is basically for quick development, sometimes for some quick evaluation, quick analysis, or POCs. So those kind of stuff you can basically use a data set. So in case there is any change, how you can do or reflect that change? So you must manually re-import the data. So that's the correct answer. There is no other way. And then the third question is, you import data into dataset. One of the column imported is year. Now because year is a number, there's a combination of a number 2025, 2026, and so on. And SAP Analytics Cloud interprets it as a measure. So the system interprets as a measure. Now how you can ensure that it is treated as a calendar year? So it's very simple question. I have mentioned in the video as well. You need to change the year measure to dimension in the dataset. So there is an option to change to dimension from the measure list. So it will appear in the measure list. You just need to click on the three dots and change to dimension. So this is answer number three. Moving to the next question, you need to delete characters from a column in dataset. What can you use? So there are two ways we can do the deletion. Custom expression editor you can use, where you can write a code and replace a particular character with another character, or maybe replace just delete that character, or using a substring based on the requirement, like how if first three characters are needs to be replaced or last three. So accordingly you can use the custom expression editor. And you can also use transform bar, using which you can use the replace option or transform option to delete the characters. So these are the two options. Now, your embedded data set in SAP Analytics Cloud has column for country, region, city, and customer name. You want to aggregate measure for these columns as a single column. So don't get confused when it says embedded data set, because property wise, most of the property will remain the same in terms of transformation, whether it's an embedded data set or it's a public data set. The only thing is you can't share the embedded data set, because embedded data set is embedded to a particular story. It can't be reused in another story, the same data set. So that's the only difference. But in terms of transformation, what kind of transformation we can perform, it's the same. So just think it as a normal data set. And in a normal data set, how you can aggregate multiple columns data together is basically you can use a level based hierarchy, which we did already in the demo session. So when you use a level based hierarchy, the parent node will have the overall value of all the childs. What is the property of a public data set? So as I said, a public data set can be shared among different stories. So using the same data set, you can create multiple stories. Which data set type does SAP Analytics Cloud support? So there are two data set types. One is public, which we can share and which we can use in multiple stories. And then there is an embedded data set where we create a story, and within the story we create a data set. So we do not create data sets separately for this. So that is called as embedded data set. So this data set can't be reused to create another story. It will always be associated with the single story. So public and embedded. Next question was, what are the limitations of data set? So the data set cannot be scheduled, as I said. You can re-import the data and the entire data but manually, but it can't be scheduled. And they do not support column based or property security. So in model, usually you can define a property just like a master data kind of thing. You can also control the access using that property. So all those things can't be done in the data set. So these two are not possible in data set. So these are the limitations. So these are the 8 questions related to data set. So we will now move to our today's session, which is on data models. So time to start with the model definition. So model in SSC is a semantic layer that organizes data into measures. You can have dimensions, you can have hierarchies, and you can also build relationship between the. For example, you create relationship by using hierarchy, or also you use multiple measures to create a calculated measure, or you can also perform unit conversion or currency conversion. All those stuff you can do convert using a model, and this is the model which you will in most of the time you will use to create your dashboard and stories to have your all kind of a visualization. It also helps you to keep the data consistent using validation rules, authorization and access control, all those features you have, which we will see in the session, like what are the features. So before starting, there are two type of models we can create in SSC: import, which is also known as uh, acquired models or acquired data models, and then a live model. So these are the two types of the models. So we will quickly go through the definition of these two types of models and their basic major differences. So import model, also known as acquired data model in SAP Analytics Cloud, stores a copy of data inside SSC. So in case of import model, we usually schedule a job and stores the data in SSC itself. However, in case of live model, it is connects directly with the source system. So you have lot many lists for the import model, but there are only few systems those are supported for live models. Though that topic we will discuss when we'll go for the connection related session. So the systems like SAP HANA, SAP BW, SAP DataSphere, these all provides a live connection with SSC. So in those cases, we do not need to copy the data. The data will be read at the runtime. Now the question is where the data is stored. So in case of import or acquired model, data is stored in SAP Analytics Cloud. In case of live model, it is stored in the backend system, which is the source system. So it will be stored in BW, DataSphere, or SAP HANA based on the live connection. Then how the data is refreshed. So in case of import model, we can manually refresh the data, we can schedule the refresh, or we can also use API subscription based refresh. So in case of API subscription, it will automatically get refreshed. In case of live model, we do not need to refresh the data. So data will always be real time data from the backend system. So whenever we will execute any story built on the live model, the data will be fetched from the source system on the runtime. Performance, so this is in memory, very fast. So when you store the data using an import model, the data is stored as an in memory, because anyway it's an analytical tool. So the purpose of this tool is to read the data faster. So that is why in memory capability is there, and it helps to fetch the data faster. In case of live model, it depends on like what is your source. So most of the cases, whatever SAP provides, like SAP BW, it's also kind of an OLAP engine, so data will be faster only. But it also depends how the data model is being designed in the backend. Similarly, is the case for SAP DataSphere. It is also for analytical purposes as well. So we will have analytical model in DataSphere, but again, it depends. The performance depends on the architecture or design of the data model in the backend system. So we have talked about the performance. Now planning feature. Now planning feature is only supported in import model, so it is not supported in live model. So when you create an import model, there are two types of models within import model which you can choose. So you can choose the import model as an analytic, or you can choose import model as a planning. So there is a checkbox option, so using which you can enable or disable the planning feature. And then the transformation you can perform in SSC itself, because you are so how in the a very usual scenario that you will have some basic transformations like cleaning or preparation of the data in the back end if it is coming from the back end. But the same sort of transformation is also possible in SSC. So that is why transformation is possible in SSC in case of import model. However, in live model, there is no such transformation possible, because data is coming at the runtime. When you open the live model, it doesn't provide you any transformation calculation kind of option. You can only group the dimensions in the model, but you can't do really like calculated measure or all those stuff you can't do in case of live model. Offline availability, yes. So even if your system is not connected with the source, because you have already fetched the data and the data is in SSC itself, the data will be available and you can view the story. Only the it depends, like the data will be based on the last refresh time. However, in live model, if it is not online, that means it's not connected with the source, then you won't be able to see any data. Security wise, in case of import model, you need to define all the roles and restrictions in the model itself in SSC side. So you can choose like specific dimensions you want to restrict, and then you can design the role and how you want to restrict using the teams or the user IDs. However, in case of live model, because the data is directly read from the backend, you don't have any control in the front end to restrict or do this restriction or security configuration. So in case of live model, the security will be configured or designed in the backend system or the source system. So just take an example that you have a live model which is connected to BW system. So, and if you need a data restriction that only these GL accounts, group of GL accounts should be visible to this group of users, so then the same role needs to be designed in the backend, and those users' profile needs to be also configured in the backend with those roles. Also, one important point is if you are using a live connection, that means the user should have an account in the backend system as well. So then only it will be able to read the data from the backend. So if you only create a live model and you just create the user account in SSC side but not in the backend system through which the live connection is established, then it will throw an authorization error. You will not be able to view the data. However, in case of import model, you just need to, because the data is fetched and stored in SSC, so whatever user are created in SSC and if has the sufficient privilege in SSC will be able to access the data. The major functionalities that are included in import model. So we will first talk about the import model, and then in the next session we will move to the live model, because import model is where you have majority of the functionalities. Live model is very simple and straightforward, that we will do in the next session. So functionality wise, when you have an import model, you have a model preference setting. So in the model preference setting, you have some general settings which we will see in the demo session. What are those general settings? You also have access and privacy setting. So using this access and privacy setting, we can restrict the data. Uh, Data restriction can be performed using this setting. Then date setting, like how the date format will be by default, or what will be the fiscal year start time, end time of the fiscal year. Because in some countries like you take an example of US, the fiscal year starts from July and ends on June. So those kind of setting can be performed in the date setting. And then planning, so if it's a planning related, you can check this option, then the model will be planning enabled. If you uncheck this option, it's a normal analytic model. If it is a planning related, then there are also certain options related to planning, like which will, what is your major date dimension to perform the planning operations in this model and all. So those we will see in the model demo session. Then we have conversion option, so you can perform currency conversion, you can also perform unit conversion using this setting. Then you have a structure priority. So structure priority is basically if your model contains both measure as well as account. So there can be a measure based model, there can be account based model. In some cases you have both. So in case of both, which of the two will take the priority, you can define over here. Then you have a data and performances. So data and performances, you can control the data quality over here, like enabling the data validation rules, so that user won't be able to post any irregularities or data of poor quality which is not acceptable by the system. So those can be controlled, uh, defining the rules for data validations. So these will be the settings you will see under model preferences. Then there will be section for measures, where you can define your measure, like a normal measure. It can be integer type, decimal type, uh, and then within the measure, you also have a tab called calculation. So within calculation, you can create a calculated measure, where you can write a mathematical formula to, based on multiple measures, you can create a measure and or other expressions which are available. And then you also have one section to do the conversion. So conversion can be of two types, like you are doing a conversion of a quantity, like you convert kilogram to gram. So then you just need to do a formula based conversion. Or sometimes it is not that straightforward, like kilogram to gram is a very generic or basic example. But sometimes you do calculation, you do conversion from Fahrenheit to Celsius, or there are different unit based conversions applicable in real world. So all those stuff can be done using the conversion. We will have separate sessions. I will just giving you the overview of what functionalities are available. I'm not going into deep of each of the topic. So and also from currency conversion, you can also perform currency conversion from one currency to another using the this option. Then coming to the dimension section, you have the dimension. You can add a number of dimensions. Then you can define the type of the dimension. So dimension can be a date dimension. It can be generic dimension. Like generic dimension can include all the character based alphanumeric characters. Apart from dimension, you can also create an organization, or you can create a account. So all those different types of dimensions you can create. After creating the dimension, you can also enable the dimension table. So when you so for example, you have some properties which we also call the master data associated with the dimension. Then you can enable the dimension table, and then the dimension table you can define everything. So for example, you have a GL account as a code. So GL account is your generic dimension type. And when you enable the GL account dimension table, so in the table dimension table, you can add more attributes, like what is the text or description of that GL account. What will be the, you can also define the responsible person for that GL account, like the owner or the GL account or the GL account group. What is the type of this GL account, whether it's a balance sheet related or PNL. So there are many features associated with general ledger. So all those stuff you can define within the property, and it's just an example where we took general ledger. It can be other dimension as well where you define the property. So that is where property is really important. Now, apart from property, you also have an option to create a hierarchy based on the dimension. So you can create a child-based parent-child hierarchy. You can also create a level-based hierarchy. So both the hierarchy options are available, which you can create, and then you can use those hierarchies in your stories and dashboards. And the last option is the write and access. So you can enable this option when you want to restrict the data based on this dimension. So for example, if you want to restrict the data based on GL account, you can go to the GL account dimension table. You can enable this option as the write access and control. And then you need to define the column where you will maintain the user list or the team list who will be having the access for a respective GL accounts. So that will be another separate topic where we will discuss the rights and accesses. Now coming the final tab or the final option is the data management. In the data management, we have three different options. Import jobs. Import jobs are usually used to import the data from several systems. It can be SAP, it can be non-SAP, or it can be Excel files. So we can import the data. We can perform certain transformations after importing, and then after performing the transformation, we can schedule it. So the option is when you import the job for the first time, it a file is saved in a draft format. When you open that draft file, you will get an option to perform the transformations. You can do the transformation, do the mapping from the source to your model. And once that mapping is done, everything is done and dusted, then you validate the data and you finish your upload. Your data is uploaded for the first time. Now in your source, if the data is changing, now how it will come to this? So then you schedule a job using the same configuration import job that you have just created. So one job is created for the first time, and then using that job you can schedule it, and you can define the setting whether I will clear entire data and load it, which is kind of a full load, you can say. You can also use an update option so that only change data will get updated. So one very important thing I want to tell you is in SSC models, all the dimensions are keys. When you think about a table, when in a database, you always define a key, right? Like for my table, what is my key based on which a unique raw or unique record is identified. So in case of a SSC model, all the dimensions are keys. So when we say the changes will be updated, if all the dimensions are the same and only the amount or quantity related stuff has changed, only those things will get updated. And if a new record is added, it will add it as a new record. So that's an update in import jobs. Export jobs are used when you want to export the data of your model to other systems. You can export it to BPC. You can also export it to other systems as well. So that is where we use an export jobs. And the final one is the API subscription. API subscription is another option where you can create a subscription based on the API, and the API uh, will help to update the data in your model from the other sources. So it's an API based subscription, API based connection, and it push the source system push the data in a JSON format. So it keeps on updating in the SSC side, and then SSC reads that JSON format file and updates the model with the updated or the latest records. So accordingly, the API subscription can be configured. So all these are like topics where we will go one by one. It is not like in the one go we will discuss everything in a very detailed manner, but it's just to give you an overview what is the possibilities um, in SAP acquired models, what options are available, and what we can do using the acquired models. So it's time to move to the demo session. Okay, so we are now at the home screen of SAP Artist Cloud. We will click on the navigation bar and we will go to the modular option. Within modular option, as you can see, there are two types of models. This is import model and this is live model, live data model. So these are the two types of model we can create. There are two other options as well at the top, which we will discuss later on. One is public dimension tables and one is conversion. So today's topic is about overview of the model, and we will have a demo on the acquired model. We'll not go into live model today. So we will click on the model, and here you see there are actually three options. Usually you see two options, but here you see want to create a classic model instead, which is account only. So you can click on this, and then it will start with the classic one. So here you will not have the measure, but you'll have the accounts. So this is option is also available, or a recommended one is the new one. So this is the new one. So this is the older one, classic one, where you have the account, but maybe due to some reason you want to use that and want to see how the classic model look like. You can test it for your training purpose. But I will use start with the data, because same as the case of any other table which you create. If you go with an empty one, you need to create all the measures and dimensions. But I will show you how it looks like. So I will start with an empty model. I will not create it completely, but I will just simply show you how the system opens. So when I create an empty model, by default, this question can come when you create an empty model: what dimensions are added by default? So you can see version and date. These two dimensions are added by default. I haven't created it. I just wanted to create an empty model. These two are created by default. Then here you have the planning capability enabled. So as I said, within the acquired model, you have two types. Either it's a planning or it's analytic. So here you see planning measure. But if I uncheck this option, it changes to analytic measure. So if I don't want to use planning, I simply uncheck this, and then it will become an analytic model. Now here a validation rule, it says that your model is missing the object. That means you should have at least one measure so that your model is complete. So if I create one measure, name it like amount, see, validation is successful now. So that means at least one measure is mandatory to create a model. Without measure, you can't create a model. So now you don't see any error message. You can add your dimensions from here, any kind of dimension. So you can name your dimension, for example, company, and then what could be the type. You can have it as an account type. You can have it as a generic type. Mostly for dimension, most of the time we will use generic. It can be a date. So when it is a posting date or a document date, all those stuff, we use a date type. Then it can be an organization, um, and then version as well. So but because version is already there, it is grayed out. But in case you delete the version, then it will allow you to create a dimension as a version. So these are the types available. This can be also in a question like what are the dimension types available. So these are the types available for the dimension. Now you can make it public. So there is a checkbox when you create it. It will be a public dimension. What does public dimension mean? In case you want to keep the data consistent throughout your system. So you don't want that somebody creates a dimension for company code or a general ledger or material every time the person is creating a model, a new model. So to make the system consistent and the data quality is also consistent, you create a public model. That means this, you create a public dimension. That means the same dimension can be used in multiple models. The same way, if you have a BW background, you create an info object. Then you can also create a field. So in case you use a field, it is associated with a particular ADSO. But in case when you use um, info object, kind of a master data info object, it can be reused through multiple ADSOs and composites. So that is why it is really important to keep the data consistent. You can use it. So you see that there is already a public dimension name company. So that is why it is not allowing. So I will just uncheck it. I don't want to make it public, for example. I want to create a private version of it. Then add existing dimension table. So if there is an existing dimension table and you want to add it to this model, then you can use this option. So this is first option. This is second option, and don't add a dimension table. So if you select this, okay, if you select this, then it will ask which dimension table you want to use. So three options are there: add a new dimension table, add existing dimension table, or don't add dimension table. That means it doesn't need any dimension table. It is a normal field without any dimension table. You can add it. Okay. So without dimension table, you can have these three options only, either a generic or a date or a timestamp. Okay, only these three options you can create while you select without dimension table. What is without dimension? That means you are not able to define any property, like uh, if a general ledger, what kind of general ledger account it is, whether it's a balance sheet or a P&L, who is the owner, all those properties you can't define when you use this. So these three options are there. So if I add it, I will just simply show you the difference. Okay, so here it is added and you don't see any option to define the property, right? Okay, but here again, if by mistake you created without dimension table, still you have an option to generate dimension table. So then it will change. So if I click on generate dimension table and just simply click OK, so dimension table is created. Now you see it's a dimension table and there is an arrow. When you click on that arrow, it will open a company and description, and then you can add. Sorry, not this one. Let me delete this. So you can add properties from here. So for example, um, I want user as one column. So I will add user. So this the type is again it is available over here. So you can select the type, the length, and click OK. Whether it's if you make it mandatory, then if something is not defined when loading the table, it will throw an error. So that way you can create and add. So that user is added here. Similarly, you can add more dimensions over here. Then you can create a hierarchy from here. So all these things we will discuss one by one. So this is how we can create an empty model. So I just simply save it and name it as like an empty model. So I will not complete this model because it will be time consuming, because all the things I need to add one by one. So if you have a time, you can do that, but I will create a model with data from my Excel file. So that will be the quicker one. It's no difference. Later on you can just decide how you can refresh the data, but it is quick one only. So I click on it, start with the data. Then there are certain options. So if your data is coming from any of these sources, you can select those sources if the connection is already established, and then read the respective table. In my case, I will go with file. Within source file, I'll select my data set, or the sample data for this demo purpose, which is the sales order data. Click on open, and then I will use first row as my column header and click on import. So the data is imported now. Now we will see what all options are there. So you see, as I created the data with sorry, the model with data, it automatically created all the dimensions and measures based on the system understanding. But in case if, for example, if some, for example, year or account ID, if the system interpret that as a measure but actually that is a dimension, you have an option like you can click on here and convert to dimension. But in our case, everything is correctly assumed. So date is coming as date format, rest all these things are dimension only. So dimension, it is considering as dimension, so nothing is wrong. But if something is wrong, like if something was expected as measure but it come in dimension, you can click here and then convert to measure, and similarly from here you can convert to dimension. Now if the change, so quantity will always be an integer, but maybe for unit price it can have a decimal. Maybe in the current data set it is not having any decimal, but in future it may come. So based on your understanding, you need to also validate whether the data type is correct or not. So what I will do, I will change the data type in this case. Click on the data type, then you have two options for the measures: dimension and integer. I will click on dimension. I don't need 7 decimal places. I will use 3 decimal places for my case and click OK. So my type has been changed. So here you see now it is in a decimal format. So similarly for these cases also you have an option like order ID. You can change the dimension type. So it is coming as these are all generic dimension, but in case you want to, that is why this generic is disabled. So but in case you want to change the order id as a account or organization, you can do that. So I'm just showing you how you can do the dimension type change from here. Then other option, you can generate a dimension table. So for example, I have a uh, product code. I have a product code and I want a dimension table. I click on generate dimension table. So it will create a here I don't need to do anything. I just simply select OK, and it will create a dimension table. So dimension table, I've already explained what is the use of dimension table. It's just an master data attributes you can have. You can also define hierarchies and all. Data access also you can do the control. So same thing you can do from here as well. So when you click on any of the dimension, here also you get the same option, generate dimension table. Or in case you want to change the type. So all those options that you are getting from here, you also get from this detailed option where you can do all those changes. And when you click on here, it will come to the model options. So it's a planning related model. What is the data source? So as of now, we haven't scheduled any data load, so that is why it is not appearing. And is there any related object? So if you'll have any related objects, it will appear over here. Okay. So these are the things that we have related to measures and dimension. Now you can also switch to calculation. So as I said, you can also create calculations using the measures, so calculated measures. Now you can do that. So either you click on here or from the drop down you go to calculation. Both are the same thing. When you click on it, it will open this calculated measure and conversion measure thing. Now here you can add your calculated measure by clicking on add, and you can just define the name. So let's suppose total amount is the name. So this is the technical name, so we can't give a space. Okay, and here we can just name is total amount, and here we can write a formula. So you have this expression editor where you will see a lot of options available. So see, the same operators conversions are there. You can do the conversions, you can perform logical operation, date time difference or mathematical operations, planning related, inverse or inverse, if you can do lookups, you can do, and business. So it has more features compared to dataset. Lot of operations functions you can perform, and then you have the logical operators and the normal mathematical operators available. So here you can write the formula, but in our case the formula is very simple. We need to use the quantity into, sorry, quantity into unit price. So this will give me the total amount. So nothing else. So I will just click on format. Okay, so if I'll write complex logic, then you can use the format to just look it cleaner, and then you can click OK. So this is created. My formula is created. You do lookup. So if I select, it will give me an error because you see you can't set aggregation of type formula is set. So you can only use aggregation type for lookups. That means you read data from somewhere or you restrict the data. So because you are restricting the data, the system needs to know what you want to do with that restriction. Okay, so in our case, this is not needed. And then when you do the aggregation type for lookup and all, you need to select the respective dimension on which. So similarly, you can also perform exception aggregation. Sometimes you use a count operator to calculate the count of distinct count, or just like any other in SQL you do count or distinct count, or even in BWX queries you create a count. So in those cases you do a count kind of stuff using these options, and then you can use an exception aggregation based dimensions based on which you need to perform the exception aggregation. Then in case if it is associated with unit, then you can use unit, but if it's a currency you can select currency. Okay, so yes, it is a currency, so I can select currency. So if it's always one currency, because in our data model there is no currency column, so I can default it. So for example, all the values are in USD, so I will select USD, no other changes. Scaling format you can change in case you want to change your decimal format. This is just the default format it will change, but again you'll have an option when creating a story, you can select the respective format as you want. So this is how simply you can create a calculation or a calculated measure in acquired model or an import model. Similarly, you can perform the conversion as well. So you can perform a currency conversion. So add currency conversion measure available if currency conversion is enabled. So currently we have not enabled the currency conversion. That is why it is not coming. So and then we have add unit conversion. So where all these features you can do. So those features you can access from preferences. So you click on the preferences here, and then in the general setting you have the model type, which can be either planning or analytic. As I said, you can just uncheck the planning feature and it will check to change to analytics. Now your model layout. So model layout is measure based. It can be account based also. Is this the name of the model, which as default it has taken the Excel name, but we can change it based on our needs. And here we can provide some description about the model, what this model is about. So that's the general setting. Moving to the access and privacy part, these are the privilege by default for the model, because there is no execution kind of stuff for a model. So you can read the model, you can update the model, you can maintain the model, and you can delete the model. So these are the data actions you can perform. You can read the data, you can update the data, maintain the data, or delete the data. And security wise, like you can have an data audit enabled. So if this feature is enabled, you can trace the data changes. So it will create a log. So if you enable this option, whenever any data is changed, so many of the time it's a planning data, somebody do the planning, some have the privilege to modify the forecast data or the budget data. So in case you want to trace it, you will be able to trace it, like who did the change, what change was done. So kind of a log will be created if you check this option. So this is one of the security thing which can be used for the audit purpose. Then you have the validation rule. Validation rule is important when you don't want any um when you don't want any incorrect or inconsistent data to be loaded to your model. So during the data load, it will reject those data. That means when you use this validation rule, so you will have some dimension tables. So if those dimension tables, so for example, I will give you a very simple example. So I have a company code and I have a dimension table for my company code. Within that dimension table, I have only five company codes: 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000. Okay, because I know that only these five company codes are there. But now, if there is a change in the system and the new company code is enabled in the source, which is called 6000, but there is no change done in our analytical model or a planning model, and this validation rule is ticked. When the data will get loaded, it will load 1000 to 5000 company codes successfully, but it will reject the 5000 sorry 6000 company code, because that 6000 company code is not maintained in the master data table. That means it is violating the validation rule. So it will reject those, and then you need to maintain it and then again reload the data, then only it will work. So that is why validation rule is important. Now, data locking. So data locking can be used for planning purposes, like a particular planning. So in planning, there is a cycle, planning cycle. On this is the start date of my planning. This is the end date of my planning. That means after the end date, I don't need anyone to change the data, which is already finalized. That means my planning cycle started on every fifth of the calendar day and it ends on the seventh of the calendar day. And this planning is for the previous month. So if we are in October 5th, we started the planning for September, and we completed all my planning for September month by 7th of October. That means now after 7th of October, my data for September is locked. Nobody can change the data of September forecast created for the future months. So that data locking will help to prevent the data changes, which is already finalized and communicated to the management. So that is why data locking feature is important. And then here it says that default, so it is currently open. If I lock it, so the entire, so locking can be done at filter level as well. Like if I lock the data, it will lock the entire model from here and nobody will be able to do any changes. But again, it can be done at the version level as well. Like version budget is locked, but you can change the forecast. Period September is locked, but you can change uh, the October. So based on the filter criteria, also the locking can be performed. Those things we will discuss while discussing the planning part. And then allow export and API access. So as you see, if this option is enabled, model can be exported. That means you can export the model, and it can be used for the export purpose to other systems. Allow import via data import API. So this will allow to import the data via API. And then restrict access or rejection summary. So if you don't want to showcase the rejection summary, then you need to. So you see, the user with the read only access cannot download the rejection summary to the model. So if you check this option on, then the users who only have the read access cannot download this. Only the users with edit access can download. Otherwise, users having read access will download, they will get confused, they will come to you why this is showing like this and all. So to avoid this, you can use this option. Then you have a data access. So in the data access, you have a model data privacy. So in case of data access, you can select this option. If this option is enabled, only owner of the data model and the user with the role is granted to access, and security roles can be accessed. The fact. So if I enable this option, so then this will become access control based, and this option is enabled. That means if even if I share it and user will try to access it, won't be able to access because it is the respective data privilege is not provided. So if I enable this option, even the data is there, the story is shared, model is shared, but user won't be able to see the data unless I create a data access management and prepare the map the user with the respective roles. So these are the data access and privacy thing. We will do the testing for each step. As I said, the objective of this session is to overview of the model and not going into access part and all. Because these each topic needs a specific use case to download and test and show you how it works. Otherwise, you won't understand, or it will not be very interactive or useful session for you. Moving to the date setting, you can enable a week based date pattern. So sometimes you have a date related field, but you want to do a reporting on a weekly basis, week 1, week 2, week 3, and so on. So then you can use this option. So it will give you the number of the week for the month. I'm sorry, not for the month, for the year. It will not be for the month. And when you go and select this option, it is not allowing it to select me because uh, I have the data. So if you already have a data in your model, it will not allow. So what you need to do, you need to first delete the data. So what I will do, I will save my model as sales order. Okay, I will save it. Okay, so I saved it, and version will automatically get added. So because version is a must for a data model in SSC. So now we will again go. So here you can see there is a data option, and you can delete the facts. Deleting facts means it will delete the data. So you can do a selective deletion, and you can also delete the entire data. So if I want to delete only a particular order, I can select the respective dimension which I want to delete. I want to delete by, for example, on a status basis. So I will select just the status. I want to delete the cancelled one. I don't want cancelled one data in my record. I can delete it. But in our case, I want to delete everything because I will load the data again. So I will delete it first. So the entire data is deleted because I've selected everything. All data is deleted. Now again, I will go to preferences, and I'll go to date setting. And now here you see it is now enabled. So I will enable week based date pattern. That means in your reporting, you'll be able to see the week based data, week 1, week 2. And here you select the week pattern, how the week pattern will be 445, 454. So these will be the week pattern. And you also have an option to select the first week. Okay, so maybe your week starts with Sunday or Saturday or Monday. So these three options, like as the first day of the week. Now, what will be the first week of the year? So, first week of the year can be it contains, by default it contains at least 4 days of the year. So for example, if we go in 2025, okay, and if we go in January, this is my January. Now this is my first week because my week is um, starting from Sunday. So let me make it Monday for easy example. So my week is starting from Monday. Okay. So I will go in January. So Monday is 30th, 31st. Then this week is starting. Now, if I see this first week, how many days are there? One, two, three, four, five. These 5 days of this year are there. That means my setting is at least 4 days, so it is more than 4 days. That means this will be considered as my week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and so on. But if I select a complete week means entire week is covered. That means 7 days. It will not have a short week, it should always have a full week. That means in January it is only 5 days, it is not 7 days. Then it will go here, it will see, okay, this is all 7 days. That means if that is the setting, this is my week 1, this is my week 2, and so on. Similarly, another setting is there. Instead of 4 days, you contains first day of the year. Okay, that will be your first week. So irrespective of whether it's 4 days, 5 days, it will always be first day of the year. Then it will be, even if it is a one day, which is a Sunday, then still that will be the first week of the year. And here you have different patterns: 445, 454, or 544, or 13 into 4. So those patterns will be useful when you will be having the weeks enabled. And I will show you later on as well, like how these weeks will be shown in the data set. Then the period label, like how you want to use it. If you select month, it will show you January, February, March. If you select period number, it will show you P02, P01, P02, P03. It will select period number with prefix. You can give some prefix over here, and that prefix will be used. Yeah, like for example, M. Okay, so M01, M02. Sorry, I clicked OK. Okay, if you give M, then M01, M02. So I will keep it month only, I don't want to go that way. Now fiscal year setting, if you want to change the fiscal year setting, then you need to have at least one date format which is applicable for fiscal year. So I will make it as a fiscal year enabled, then these options will get enabled. So let's suppose I am in US, then I will start my fiscal year from July. So my fiscal year start with July. And what where I denote my fiscal year, whether I will take the fiscal year starting or the fiscal year ending. So how I want to denote my fiscal year. So I will take it as by year which it starts. That means I'm starting in July 2025. My fiscal year is 2025. Okay. And how I want to label my period, I will use month, like January. So not month, because it's a fiscal year. What I can do, instead of that, I can use this prefix and fiscal year month, or fiscal year period. I can use like this: fiscal year period 0102, kind of. So these are very important features, will be useful for finance reporting and planning as well. Going to the planning feature, you have planning capability on. You can turn it off and then everything will go away. Then you can turn it on, everything will come back. Then you need to select the time for the planning, time dimension for the planning. So our model have only one time dimension, that is why it is selected. In case your model have multiple, you can select which data dimension you want to use for the planning purpose. And then you have the private version. So if any private version is applicable over there, you can delete it. So currently the model have no private versions, but sometimes when your model is there and some, let's suppose some user was doing has saved some data in the private version, and that user has left the company, so that data is still there, and maybe you're not able to perform some operation because the system is saying that there is data available in the private version, kindly publish it or clear it. So then the admin can come here, and in the private version he can clear that option, private version data. So that is another thing. Planning area, you can define like how many data records you want as a performance parameter. By default it's 5 million records, but you can increase or decrease based on your needs. So recommended planning area is basically used when you want to optimize the performance and need to remove unnecessary operations happening in the backend. So for example, if you have access to only company code 1000, And when you are using a data action which is performing some operation on the data model, and it tries to read and write based on the data available in the model. So if you select this option, it will simply ignore everything, and it will just simply know that this person is performing this operation and what are the data available for this person based on the access control. So it will not bother about other things. So that will be helpful for the better planning performance, because multiple people will be doing planning on the same model during the planning cycle. So that is very important. Then based on the data locking, now if somebody is performing some distribution also, okay, so then that or distribution or some action is being performed, and some data is already logged, so then it will just ignore that data. Those are already logged in the system. So that is also used as a recommended planning area. So based on the data locking, it can be performed. And set auto generate based on the table context. So this is basically how the planning area is auto generated by default. So when we have a table kind of a format in our story and we do any planning, so the area is auto, this is the default one. So but in case we want to change it, we can also use based on data locking or based on this. So here you see this feature can reduce the size of your planning area and improve performance. If you choose or set this feature as the default, you can still enable or disable it. Okay, so this feature you can, even if you have set it, you can enable or disable while doing the planning. Then there is a data disaggregation option. How the data disaggregation works: when you distribute the data from the top node to the child nodes, okay, so there the disaggregation happens based on certain drivers or based on weighted average. There are a couple of options how we do the disaggregation. But this is also important to know that how that this aggregation will happen. So for example, if something is logged and you don't want to change the data, so for example, you have a country, within country you have a state, within state you have a region, sorry, within state you have a city. Now let's suppose the planning has started from cities, okay, and certain cities are already concluded, and it is concluded that this data are now concluded and now it is logged. That means no further change is expected in the data of those cities, so you logged it. Now at the top node, which is the country node, if you perform any distribution, it will go from country to if you perform any distribution or any changes at the top node, it will get disaggregated towards its child. But if anything is already logged and this setting is set as checked, then it will not change the value of that logged data. Okay, so as you can see, if enabled, logged values will remain fixed. This means that the value entered at the parent level will be disaggregated and distributed to the unlocked child only. It will not get distributed to the locked child. Similarly, based on the validation rules. So if this option is enabled, restricted value will remain fixed. This means that the value entered at the parent level will be disaggregated and distributed to the valid child only. Okay, if there is any if you can define a validation rule, and based on the validation rule only it will disaggregate the data. And based on the data access also, so let's suppose I have access, my access is based on some GL account. Now this GL account can be used in multiple regions and area, and I am doing a planning at the country level. Now disaggregation will only go to the respective GL accounts and not to the all GL accounts, because I have access to only specific GL accounts. So that is how the disaggregation will happen based on the data access control. Moving to the conversion option, you have a currency conversion option available. You then here you can have a currency rate table. So we haven't configured this table, so we need to configure this table, and then only we will be able to use it. So there should be one currency conversion table in your SSC tenant, which will be used for data, sorry, currency translation, and then the respective date to be used based on which the currency conversion will happen. So date field we have in the model, but this table we don't have. So what we will do, and then you can also create a currency variable. Currency variable are useful when you want to select the target currency as a user input, then these are useful. Okay, so we will disable this option because we don't have a currency table currently. And then you have a unit translation option. So this unit transformation you can perform in the model. So these are all separate topics we will see. And then structure priority. So currently our priority is based on the model, but it can also be account based. Okay, so you can create a account based model as well. And then moving to the data performance, you can optimize story building performances. So this option you can switch on and load on the system. It will stop the automatic update that happens when changes are made in a chart or a table. So this will help optimizing the performance. You can also have the statistics. So use this option to view detailed statistics on the comments. So you can see the statistics of the comments associated with the model here. And then you have a maintenance option where you have the enable legacy export. So if you switch on this option, you'll be able to export to other applications such as S4 HANA, integrated planning, business planning, or OData services. And then you can also use optimized scenario composer functionality. This is by default, it's checked on. You can check off if required. And now if something is already deployed and you change some properties or something, and your model sometimes gets corrupted, so this is one option, like you can redeploy it and then it will start working. So sometimes people are very pissed off, like my model is not working, giving some error, I'm not getting anything, how to resolve it. So in those cases, try to redeploy it, so then it will start working. So these are the all options that we have available in preferences. We'll go back to our model. Now, other options, you can share this model to other users or teams. You can publish it to catalog if somebody wants to open the model. Usually, we publish a story, not a model, but still, in some case, if you want to publish it, you can do it. In case you want to undo and redo any option, you can use these two buttons. Here, you can add the similar way how you are adding the calculated measures from here. You can also do the addition from here also, because we are in the calculation tab currently. But if we move to the model structure, you'll see you'll also have an option to add dimension. So we will move to the model structure. The same options are available here. You can add measure and dimension. So same feature changes when you move from the different workspaces, like moving from model structure to calculation and data management. So these are the three workspaces available within the import model. Then you have a variable here. You can define a variable. So for example, if you want to do currency conversion, you can just add a variable. You can name it as target currency. This is a variable ID. So what you need to do, you need to remove the spaces, copy it, paste in the description. Okay, give the space, and then value. You need to select the value. It can be number, or you don't have any currency column. But in case you have a currency, I'm just showing you. So in case you'll have a currency column, you can select, or you can give it as a number by default, because it doesn't change it from number. Either you keep it as a number or you go with a member ID. Like if it's a status, for example, instead of currency, I'll just use the member ID of this. And then if you want any default value, you can use from here. So instead of currency, let's suppose I am creating a variable for status, just not to confuse you. And then I go with the default value. So by default value, I can give it as a hash, because I've deleted the data. It is not coming over here. But when you'll have the data, you'll get the default value, and then you can select it. Okay. You can create multiple variables. Click OK. Now everything is fine. We have seen how you can create all this stuff. Overview of the model. Now we will save it. Model is saved now. So we have discussed about the variable. There is an option to data logs. So whether you want to go to the data log, you can delete the facts, or you can delete the data using this option. We have already seen. You can view the data using this. So currently it says there is no data. When you load the data, then using this option, you will be able to view the data if you want to see the preview. Okay, and then there is a data validation. If something is wrong, then this will give you an error. If something is wrong with the model, like if any feature is not correct and all, so you'll get the error message over here. So these are the all options associated with model. We have discussed about model structure. We have discussed about the calculation. Moving to the data management part. So how we can do the data management? Here you see there are three options: import job, upload job, export job, and then you have API subscription. So we will use import job. Using import job, you need to click on this, go to the file server, select your source file, select the file, click open, and then click import. Okay, so data is imported. You can see the import job is created. Now within this import job, you need to run the import. So this is hasn't been uploaded to the model yet. It is still in the draft status because model doesn't understand how the mapping is and all. So to do that, you need to set up the import. So you click on setup import, then another window will open, and here you will see the mappings, like which column of your Excel is mapped to which field of your model. So in our case, because we have created the model using the same Excel, the names are matching. But in some cases, if the names are not matching, then you need to map it manually. So this will show you the options like similar to the data set, the same all transformation options are available over here. So in case you want to perform any transformation, you can perform all those transformations that we have seen during the data set. You also have a custom expression editor using which you can create a new field and attach to the model. Okay, you can delete the column, you can add all those transformations that we were able to do with the data set, you are able to do over here. Okay, so I am not going to do anything, I will go to next because I've already shown how you can do the transformations. Now in the next option you see there is a mapping. So system automatically mapped the source with the target. But in case if something is not mapped, for example, if I remove the unit price, so when I remove it, it comes over here. Unit prices come over here. So this source I need to map it. So how to map this unit price is not mapped. So this is my source. This is my data foundation. Okay. So I need to drag and drop here. So now it will create a mapping and it will move here. So that means no mapping is left. Everything is 100% mapped. You can validate from here as well. So this is having a default value. We do not need to map anything um, for this. Okay. So if I remove this, for example, it says that version. So, but in our Excel, we don't have anything called version, but this version is mandatory. It automatically gets created in the model. So what we will do, we will set default value. What is default value? Public actual. Click OK. So default value is added. Now order date is order ID, everything is mapped correctly. So once it is validated, I will go to next. Next is the dimension property. So in case you have a dimension property enabled, it will come over here. So here we have a product code as a dimension table. So you see the source of the product code. But in case if for the description you have some column coming from the source. In our case, we don't have any column where we have the product description. But in case we have it, we can drag and drop over here so that your master data will also get updated. Okay, so I will ignore this option. Now this is the final one where it will show you everything as a summary, that mapping restrictions, dimension restriction, data quality. So if any issue is there, it will show you. Okay, so it says there is no issue, zero issues. Dimension restriction, it says that there is a dimension restriction on the order date out of range. It says okay, 69 records. So we'll see that why it is showing date out of range, not an issue. So we will run the import now. Click on finish. So here you see update, import method is update, and reverse sign is off. This dimension update enabled. You can change the setting clicking on the change setting. So I have ran the import. The import job has started. So here you will see the status. You see gather data, prepare data, map to model, then review import, then run import. So 69 rows it is saying rejected. Now how you will get those rejected? You click on status over here, and this is the rejected rows. So you can click on the rejected rows. It will get downloaded in an Excel or CSV format. You can open that CSV format. These are the data which are ignored by the system. Okay, and the issue is data out of the range. Okay, So these data are out of the range or the dead, that is why it is. So how we will resolve this? We'll go to model structure. So here you can see now the data is available to visualize. Now we can click on the order date and you can go to the dimension table. When you go inside the dimension table, you will see the range of the data. Okay. So here you see the range is from 25 to 25 year to year. Okay, that means only 2025 data is applicable. These data are also from 2025 only. So what we can do, let's increase this range instead, having 3 years of the data as the date range, because you know that we have a fiscal year setting as well applied, which could cause the data failure issue, because we are considering the start date as the fiscal year from July to June onwards. No, so that may be the reason as well. So I've just saved it to consider 3 years of the data, and then we'll go back, go to the data management again. So we will try to load the data again on the same file. So because these are Excel based, you need to reload the data. But if it will be based on any connection from the source, then you just need to refresh the job. Okay, so I will set up the import again. Next, next, next. So this time you see there is no dimension restriction. It is showing no issues. It is showing, that means it will run the entire data. I will change the setting. I will clean and upload the version again, because I want to delete the previous data, and click OK. What all settings you can see, you can either update, you can amend, append is the case where your source only provides the new records and not the older ones. This will clear entire data and upload it, and this will clean and replace the subset of the data. So subset, if you select, then you need to select the scope as well, like what set of data you need to delete. The mapping option, in case you want to reverse, we don't want to reverse. Update local dimension with new measure. Okay. Import empty member id cell as well, so that is okay. I'll click finish. So the status is now progress. You see all green color. That means all records are loaded. Now this is it for today's session, where we have discussed about the overview of the model, and we will discuss in more details of each section of the model, of the calculations and all, in the upcoming videos. Now it's time for question related to SAC certification from the today's session. So our first question is, in a data model, what can you use to further describe a dimension? So we have already discussed this. In a planning data model, what dimensions are included by default? What must a data model contains in SAP Analytics Cloud? Two correct answers. You have a story based on an import model. The transaction data in the model's data source changes. So how you can update the data in the model? Again, two correct answers. Your user need to analyze data in a story. What kind of data model you can create? Again, two options. You are using a model that includes a prompt. Prompt is nothing but a variable that we have defined during the session. So when is the prompt presented at the runtime? So you can try this, creating a story based on a model which have a variable, and you can answer this question. What does the model setting optimize story building performance do in a story? So again, it has a one correct answer from the below four options. So these are the questions for today's session. Hope you like the content. If yes, please do subscribe the channel if you have not subscribed it yet. Press the bell icon to receive the notification related to the latest uploads, and use the comment section for any feedback or any questions related to the session. We'll come up with a new video related to SAP Analytics Cloud soon. Till then, stay tuned. Have a nice day. Bye bye.